everybody. So nice to be here with you again this month. What I want to talk about this month in my segment is illness and the perception of time. Recently, I just went through a bit of an issue with a back injury, and it got me contemplating even further. And that's what I want to bring forward today to sort of dissect, pull apart, and really get into the underlying root of it and how that does or does not fit into today's model of how we show up in the world. So the perception of time, what is that to us? Right? That's linear, isn't it? We've got to be somewhere, we've got to work 40 to 60 hours a week, we've got kids to look after or parents to take care of or commitments with friends and colleagues or our own study. Maybe you've got something you're doing on the side. We fill those 16 hours a day, and then maybe you watch a little TV or you read a book or you meditate or you take a nap or you go for a walk. I like to walk every night after work. Here in the East Coast, we have had so much rain that, I'm getting on a treadmill inside, and it's not quite the same as being out connecting to nature. You've heard me in previous pieces talk about how we're almost in that environmental hypnosis where we're just communing with what's around us, with all that is, and how important that is. So we spend most of our time in this active state of doing, right? We're taking action, we're getting to work, we're checking off our to-do list, we're getting the groceries, we're cooking on the weekends to set ourselves up well for the week. We are constantly busy. And then something happens. Something happens that surprises us. We get an illness, we're not feeling well, we hit an emotional wall, and boom, it has our attention, right? Our soul path or our spirit path or our purpose while we're here, however you want to describe that inner knowing that each of us have in our gut, that you're here to grow, you're here to learn, you're here to contribute, right? Hear the words. Those don't respond to linear time. Those are basic human needs. The first for safety, to have a roof over our heads, to have shelter, to have food, to have water, to have what we need to actually survive. That's a basic human need. The next is connection. We are wired to be part of a community, to connect with others, to have some meaning. And the third is contribution. As we develop the first two, there is a basic human need to make our life mean something, to contribute back to the whole, whether that's macrocosmic to the world or whether that's microcosmic. You begin to contribute, you feel more value. You feel that gut check of, I'm on the right path here. And that may be just being kind to your neighbors, taking an interest, feeling like the safety of others' children is your responsibility too, being a good neighbor. The way that we contribute and how we feel about that. And if we're not meeting those basic human needs, we feel out of balance. We may not know what it is, but it's worth checking one of those. Now, when we have something happen that we are not expecting, or it comes by surprise, or it's shocking, we don't talk about how it's a communication. That's not in our current model of wellness. That our soul responds to whatever layer of growth you're ready for. Hear it, hear the words. What's the next level? What's the next layer that I am ready for? We don't look at illness as an important conversation. We look at it as more of an inconvenience, maybe something scary. How do we get through it? Give me the pill, fix it up. How long is this going to take? How long will I be in this cast? I remember when I nearly died back in 2002, when I got really sick. And it was this combination of being away in Europe a few months before, then coming back and still not feeling well. I had this virus and it was like a flu that wouldn't go away. And then I got food poisoning when I went out to dinner with a friend, and that was it. That went into my inner ear, and I had extreme vertigo and I was losing consciousness. And for 8 straight months, I could not walk a straight line. I was leaning against a wall in order to get somewhere. And that when you're dealing with something that's chronic or feeling like long term, it can really start to mess with your thoughts. You can start to think, is this it? Is this the new normal? What's normal for me? And then we start to think, well, how do I get back? We're in a hurry. How do I get back to that life that I had? I had a good life. I had a lot of friends. I had a great social life. I had a lot of fun. How do I get back to that? And there isn't going back to that. There's what am I ready for next? What's the next level? Now, sometimes it may be a short spurt, as long as you get the message. If we're just pushing it away to get back to something, it'll come back. Right? That's what happens. What we're not talking about is that whole approach to wellness, which is, what is this trying to teach me? Now, it may be a quality of strength and courage, but as a clinical hypnotherapist, what I have been seeing both personally in my own life and now with so many clients that I work with is that illness is about a conversation kind of with the divine, with that inner knowing, all-knowing part of you, that contribution, that reason why you're here, that whether that's a course correction, whether that's new information ready to drop in, that's part of your healing process that's going to be so important for you to share later with others on the other side of it. But what I do know is that there is no forcing that into a linear time conversation. There is no o'clock in the subconscious mind. It's not healing o'clock, hurry up, I got to get back to work. That doesn't exist in the subconscious mind. What does exist in the subconscious and superconscious mind is a congruency, right? There is our perception of ourselves as a human, as an extension of all that is. And our subconscious mind knows the all that is, and it built us. It created every cell that made us. It knows exactly how to heal us. And the superconscious knows the route to that. But we have to be able to access that. And we don't access that in our busy doing conscious day. And if we approach healing from just the busy doing conscious level, we are missing the conversation. And the conversation, the most important piece today, is that the conversation is about the subconscious mind using your body, because that's what it governs over. Using your body as a way to get your attention. As a way to say, hey, we've got inconsistency here. Superconscious mind knows all of you and your important piece, why you are here, your soul growth, your spiritual development, who you are becoming. It knows the road, but what you are currently telling yourself is not congruent with that road. You've got beliefs here. You've got thoughts about this. We've got fears. We've got the next level of our growth that you're now ready for. You've been circling it maybe. You've been seeing the signs. Maybe you've been having the thoughts or the conversations. Maybe you're just scared. You don't want to leave that job. You don't want to leave that relationship. Maybe you don't want to set healthy boundaries. Maybe you don't want to say out loud, here's what I'm willing to accept, and here's where I think things could be a lot better, and here's what I'm willing to contribute to that, but the rest I'm not taking responsibility for. Or I love this, but I really, really, in my gut check, just want to be doing this instead. There is an inner dialogue happening that you are very aware of. Maybe you want to deny it. Maybe you don't believe it's possible. Maybe hear it. Maybe you don't think you're capable of it and the world is giving you all the reasons and signals not to believe in yourself. But the subconscious mind does not respond to that linear way of thinking and feeling and being. Its job is to protect you, keep you safe, and move you towards pleasure and away from pain. So it is going to come knocking at your door when you have these deep desires and these beliefs that are inconsistent. They are incongruent. They are in conflict. And your body begins to be its way of communicating with you. So do you see how it's not logical to try to push it down, push it away, ignore it, get past it, hurry up and get back to work? We're missing the whole receiving end. And in that receiving is the wisdom. It's the conversation with creation. It's fascinating to me that plants, in the study of plants, there's a book, it's extraordinary, Secret Life of Plants, if you've never read it. And Cleve Baxter, if you don't know him, Cleve Baxter was the man who invented the lie detector test for the FBI in the United States. And how he determined it eventually was through putting the electrodes on his houseplant. And his houseplant started to respond, the meters would rise whenever he had thoughts about hurting it at first. It was about dipping a leaf in a cup of coffee, and the plant sensed pain or heat coming. And then when he thought about, he was a smoker back then, and he thought about burning one of the leaves, and the meters went crazy. And he thought, well, how is this happening? The plant doesn't have a nervous system. The plant doesn't have a brain. How is this being perceived, right? That all that is, the energy that of creation that creates worlds, created you, right? Birth is a miracle that still can't even be fully explained. We have our genetics and we have how the body creates it, but where does that come from? Where does that innate ability come from? Right? It's extraordinary how we are made, and we are missing half of the conversation in our current model, which is this has deep meaning. Do we celebrate when we see people who are ill and say, wow, they are in a deep sacred space right now in a communication with themselves about their purpose and their path here? No, we don't. We get scared. We try to deny it. We try to say, everything's fine. You're fine. Instead of, you're really in it. And I'm celebrating that, even though it's uncomfortable for you right now. I'm here if you need me for anything, if you just want to talk, if you just want to share, if you just need to be scared and cry, it's all okay. You are in such a deep and sacred space right now, deciding your human basic needs. Maybe this is about how you're going to change things and how you're going to contribute to the world. That's what it was for me. If I went back to my old life in the film industry, I would have been a completely different person right now, doing a completely different job. But this was part of the path this lifetime, and that illness got me there. Right? I never would have studied the things. I never would have met the people. I never would have had the thoughts. It was all part of my innateness. But how it was going to be expressed, I wasn't on that path. So we hit forks in the road. And one may lead back to where we were, and that's perfectly fine, if that's what feels congruent for you. But if it doesn't, and you're fighting that inner knowing, it will resurface, in my opinion. And if you choose the other road, where it will lead to what it is that feels so good for you, yeah, there's going to be bumps. I'll tell you that right now. Change is hard. None of us like change. But if you honor that conversation, then you are working with the power that creates universes. And I think that it is a powerful source that as you learn more and more about trusting yourself, think about what that is right there, what you learn to become. The skills you learn along the way are what you lean on when you start to do what it is you came here to do. So, when you have an illness, when you have chronic pain, when you're being held for a while that requires patience that you maybe don't have or you're out of, start to consider the conversation that's trying to occur and get your attention to make that congruent again internally for you. Remember the client I talked to? In fact, if you didn't watch it, I would highly recommend you go back and see it. I believe it was in January. I did a piece called Illness Equals Communication. And I went into all the detail about the subconscious and superconscious mind and how it's not random, right? When I developed a thyroid disease and healed it, that was not random. Why it was thyroid for me, why it might be something else for you is not random. And we don't address that in today's current medical model, do we? We chalk a lot up to genetics, and the rest we say we don't really know. Stress is impactful, diet is impactful. It's extraordinary. I watched a video the other day, and it was an older video. It was Deepak Chopra. And Deepak Chopra, it was, I think, probably 20 years ago. And they had done an experiment where rabbits were fed chemical substances that would have normally been toxic. Now, not toxic to kill them, this wasn't cruel, but it would have raised their cholesterol level because the immune system would have had a response. And so the cardiovascular system, all the messages would be sent to deal with this toxin. And what they found when they fed the toxin to the second group of rabbits, they stroked them. They loved them. And those rabbits transformed the toxic chemical, and there was no cholesterol increase. So back to Cleve Baxter, who was working with his plants, he then separated himself into another room and had the electrodes on the plant and had thoughts in the other room, and the plant still responded in the same way. He invited other scientists in because they actually wanted to debunk him. They came to disprove what he was saying, and they all left amazed and in agreement that this was actually happening. This consciousness, this sentience, this awareness. And what had happened was the scientists that came, the plants all went into a dormancy state, like a fake death. Like they called it fainting. There's nothing. They were non-responsive the entire time the scientists were there. And then as soon as he asked them, do you harm plants in your experiments? And they said, oh, yes, we bake them. We bake them until they're completely dead, and then we use them for testing. So the plants were all very much aware that who was in the room meant them harm, and they went into a fake death. As soon as he removed those scientists and brought another group of scientists in that did not harm plants, all the meters were working again. It's extraordinary. They found out that plants move like we do, but we can't see it. It's so slow, we can't see it. But they move towards the sun. They move away to give each other enough room for root systems. They protect themselves. Think about the skin rashes that we get, or the thorns and things on certain flowers. They will protect themselves from being consumed unless it is in their natural cycle and they are ready to let go. When oranges fall from a tree, because he kept replicating this. He went on to fruits, and the oranges that fell from the tree, rather than decay and die, the meters, they were happy to be consumed and be part of another organism. In other words, eaten. There is a consciousness in everything. We know this, but then what are we doing if we are being forced to slow down? Do we apply that same knowledge to ourselves, or are we simply inconvenienced? Are you working with the energy that created you and learning that conversation so that you are congruent, living the life you want to be living, having the health you want, the strength, the longevity, the positivity, contributing in the way that's meaningful for you? This is part of our purpose for being here. It's not just to be sheltered, and it's not just to be isolated. It's to connect and it's to contribute. This is what, for me, clinical hypnotherapy, why it became so extraordinary, because it's not random. Remember, if you saw a few months back, I spoke about a client who came to me who had these terrible skin rashes occurring. And what we discovered was when she was younger, she was trained to eat everything on her plate, even though she didn't like some of the foods that were there. Now, I know parenting today has changed a little bit, but when I was younger, that's exactly what I lived with. Finish what's on your plate, even when you didn't, when you hated it and you had to just sort of choke it down. Now, she learned when she was younger that she said, after that, I didn't know what I liked or what I didn't like. I just waited for someone to tell me what to do. I didn't know what I liked anymore. I never got the chance. I was sort of trained away from it. So why the skin rashes? Why was that the exact perfect match for her? Because if you think about the subconscious mind, remember, it's a conversation. So what's the conversation? It's trying to bring you back to congruency with superconscious, with subconscious and superconscious, that all-knowing part that knows who you really are. And if you're not believing that you can trust yourself, and if you're not believing that you know what you like or what you don't like or how you're contributing, then that is going to be something the subconscious mind is going to try to get your attention around. How does it get your attention? Through skin rashes. Do you see the brilliance in that? So she had all of the wellness team. She had her naturopath and her doctor, and she had people helping her doing all the things, right? The elimination diet and supplementation and so forth. But clinical hypnotherapy gets into the underlying belief system around that. So isn't it beautiful when you come to the understanding that through understanding why the skin rashes occurred, the subconscious mind is trying to bring you back into a place of where you will trust yourself and that you do know what you like. And what a more brilliant way to do that than through skin rashes, so that you get to decide which foods work for you and which don't. We're going all the way back to childhood here. It's a perfect match in the subconscious mind. It's extraordinary. And so what you're experiencing isn't random. Why it is the way that it is for you is an absolute match. The decoder is finding out why and how it helps put you back on the path, because that's what it's for. And it's not about how quickly can we get back to work, how quickly can we not be inconvenienced by this. You see what's missing today? Half of the conversation is missing. The half that resides below the conscious level of awareness and the linear way of living and being. And I thought that was a conversation worth having. Thank you. I so appreciate you. If you are struggling with something right now and I can be of any help, just reach out to me through my website. I do have a bit of a wait list to work with me, but know that you have everything within you that you need to begin to understand what this means for you. And there's no wrong way to approach this if you give yourself patience and time and commitment to do the inner work. It will be something on the other side of it that will have the most profound meaning, that will lead you back to the congruent, aligned state that you're really after. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and I'll see you next month. Bye for now.